Hey guys, Mr. McMahon. Today we're going to start looking at European exploration. This will be part 1 of 3. Today we're going to look at the reasons for European exploration. The number one reason was that Europeans were looking for an all-water trade route to India and China. And we're going to remember this through what we call the 3 G's of gold, God, and glory. All right, so this is on European exploration at South Carolina Standard 664. Your learning objectives: explain the economic, religious, and political incentives for European exploration. And second is able to compare these incentives among 4 major countries: Portugal, Spain, England, and France. Vocabulary. First of all, you have to know what we call an incentive. It is something that motivates you. It encourages you to do something. Maybe your parents give you a certain amount of money for how many A's and B's you have. That would be what we call an incentive. And the word to explore, it means to travel for adventure or discover. So when we talk about the reasons or motivations for European exploration, we're going to call them incentives. The first incentive for Europeans to explore the world was economic, which is trade, which is become wealthy. And we're going to refer to that as gold. The second incentive was religious. And for religious, we mean the spread of Christianity, and we're going to call that God. And number 3 was the political incentive, which we're going to call glory, where you wanted glory for yourself and your country. So we're going to remember the 3 incentives for European exploration as gold, God, and glory. Now, some indirect causes of European exploration. So if we go back in time, when we talked about the Crusades, one of the lasting effects of the Crusades was that the European Christians really wanted to start trading with Asia. And they learned some things as they fought the Crusades, and they brought these items back to Europe when they returned. So this causes European exploration. Another one is the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, with humanism and the birth or reawakening of education in the learning of technology, this causes European exploration. So when we talk about the European age of exploration here on the continent of Europe, during this time period you had, in Bubble 1, very strong monarchs. These monarchs, Bubble number 2, wanted to expand their trade. Bubble 3, the reason they wanted to expand their trade was for great wealth. And number 4, and in order to do this, they had to improve their technology in order to explore the world. So where the European monarchs wanted to expand their trade was with the civilizations of China and India, and other places in the Far East that we call the Orient. They also wanted to trade really silk and spices. So the first incentive for European exploration was economic. Bubble 1 through trade, which would go to Bubble 2, which would be great wealth, which we're going to call gold. All right, so early on, when European monarchs were trading, they would trade using the Silk Road, which was mostly over land. They would have to go through the Middle East to trade to China and other lands of the East. But Europeans said, we don't want to trade and have to go through the Middle East. So Europeans started to figure out, how can we find an all-water route from Europe to India and China? So this is really the number one reason for European exploration, is to find an all-water route from Europe to India and China and other lands in the East. So why an all-water route? First of all, there's no middlemen. You don't have to trade with people in the Middle East. You have less taxes, which, number 2, it reduced your costs. Number 3, yes, going over the ocean is dangerous, but it was less dangerous than trying to trade over land. And 4, even though the distance may have been longer, it was quicker, because over the ocean would be quicker than walking over land. So again, European monarchs, they wanted to expand their trade, which would equal great wealth. In order to do this, they had to improve their technology. In Bubble 1, the top right corner, we're talking about a caravel, a type of ship called a caravel. It had basically the ship did not sink too far into the water, so you can get close to shore. Second, it had triangular sails, which allows you to sail into the wind. Number 2, the advancement of the rudder, which allows you to steer your ship. 3, trading with the Chinese, one of the 4 great inventions, the compass, would allow European explorers to know north, south, east, and west. 4, another navigational tool was the astrolabe that they learned from Islamic Arabs. And the astrolabe will tell you your distance north or south of the equator, and you use astronomy, so it's astrolabe. And number 5 is an improvement in map making called cartography. Europeans started to build better maps which allow you to more easily explore the world. So the first country we're going to talk about is the European country of Portugal. The Portuguese get the glory and get the gold because they are the first country to find an all-water route from Europe to India and China. So what about the Portuguese king? Number 1, they wanted to expand trade. Number 2, to become very wealthy. So for number 3, one of the reasons they become wealthy is they start to set up settlements and colonies along the African coast. And number 4, they are basically the first European country to become involved in the African slave trade. The next country we're going to talk about is Spain. Now, since the Portuguese controlled the route around Africa, the Spanish decide to sail west to find a direct route to an all-water route to India and China. However, when sailing west, they sailed into the Americas. So in bubble 2, they decide to become wealthy off of gold. So 3, they decide to conquer mainly South America and Central America. And number 4, we know from our previous studies, they steal the gold from the Aztecs and the Inca through conquering them. So next is England. They start to look for an all-water route to India and China. Again, since the Portuguese controlled the route around the tip of Africa, they decide to sail west. The English sail west into North America. Bubble 2, they decide to set up colonies and settlements in North America. Bubble 3, you'll notice the settlements and colonies are along the east coast of the United States. And so bubble 4, they decide to use the colonies for trade to become wealthy. So through colonies and settlement and trade with those colonies, England becomes wealthy. Our 4th European country is France, and they also are looking for that all-water route from Europe to India and China and Asia. Again, they sail west. They sail west through North America. So they're looking for, in bubble 2, they're looking for a northwest passage or a way to get to India and China. Number 3, what they settle on doing is getting involved with the fur trade with Native Americans. In the fur trade, beaver, deer, other bear, other types of furs, they become wealthy. And they do this fur trade in bubble 4 along the Mississippi River and the Great Lakes. Second incentive for European exploration is religious, and we're going to call this God because they're hoping to spread Christianity throughout the Americas. So bubble 1, we remember the Reformation and Counter-Reformation, where there was an attempt to reform the Catholic Church. Both Protestants and Catholics see their duties to spread Christianity. In bubble 2, Spain, France, and Portugal try to actively convert the native people of the Americas to Christianity. England, instead of actively converting, sends over colonists to create settlements, and those settlers in those settlements bring their Christian faith with them to help spread Christianity. The third incentive is called glory, and what we mean from glory is you being loyal and that sense of adventure for your country. So again, we're talking in bubble 2, the Portuguese. In bubble 3, we're talking about the Spanish. In bubble 4, we're talking about England. In bubble 5, we're talking about France. So again, in summary, our 3 major incentives for European exploration are number 1, which is economic. How can they find an all-water route from Europe to India and China and Asia? We're going to call that gold. Number 2 is religious, the spread of Christianity. And number 3 is glory, that sense of loyalty and adventure for your country. So that was today's presentation on European exploration, part 1 of 3. Part 2 will be next. And again, the main reason for European exploration was that Europeans were looking for an all-water trade route with India and China.